Hello and welcome to my forge. Some time ago I had the first 9th edition Warhammer 40k match. My orcs got clobbered all the way, but the game was fun and that's the point. What I saw my army was missing was a good anti-tank unit. So I could buy the Tankbustas as a boxed set, or I could build them myself. As a basis for my conversion, I am using the standard Ork boys. I've also found some old Warhammer Fantasy Ork heads in my bits box, which I'm going to use too. As projectiles, I'm using old rockets from plastic models. There is one bazooka in the box. For a Tankbustas unit, 4 models are missing. First step is to get the weapons. For this, I'm using the shooters. In the old box at the end of the 90s, they were single parts, which left some possibilities for converting. I just cut away the muzzle and the magazine, now I glue an old rocket to it, and the first Tankbuster is ready for battle, after painting of course. The second Ork's weapon is a little bit more detailed. The shooter is extended with an old Sparrow rocket, at least I think it is one. I cut the rocket with its wings and it is glued to a piece of plastic board, which is a shield against the rocket's exhaust. I think an Ork isn't bothered by this, but the weapon looks much better with it. What's left of the rocket is also cut above the wings. At the ends I drill a hole to connect the parts later with brass wire. The shooter's ammunition belt is cut away, then all parts are glued together. In my bits box I found some cable and some tubes. One of these parts is glued to the weapon. The Ork also gets a backpack from Cromlech, and the next conversion is ready for painting. Ork number 3 is firing its rocket launcher from his shoulder. An Imperial mortar will be the barrel and a pistol is used for a handle. As done with the shooters, the muzzle is cut away and the gun is brought into shape so that it can be used as a handle. The parts are glued together and I also add an exhaustion pipe, for now the weapon rests on the shoulder of the Ork. On his back I will glue some hand grenades to get into close combat with tanks. The fourth Ork is a little bit easier. I build a rocket launcher from some plastic parts, which I then glue to the back of the Ork. The projectile is a leftover from an Ork boss in Mega Armor. The handle is from an old shooter out of my bits box. In the end, I'm gluing the magazine of another shooter to the weapon, so it is longer. Also, the Ork will get some extra armor and some grenades. The last Ork gets a Panzerklopper. That's the German translation in my codex, so I don't know the original English word. Sorry for this. This weapon is the easiest of all to build. I'm using a chopper and cut away the axe blade. Next I'm drilling a hole in an old rocket and into the chopper and glue everything together. The weapons are ready, so let's start painting. As the miniatures are orcs, there's not much to say about the colors. Lots of green, brown and metal. Maybe some red to make the weapons faster. This is the first time I'm building an anti-tank unit. When I started 40k there was no need for them because I never had to fight against tanks on a larger scale. And choppers were much better in the late 90s. No armor saves better than 4+. Nightmare for any space marine. As I mentioned earlier, my Orks had a first battle, and in contrast to my old army lists, I had to field much bigger infantry units. As my friend and myself are just getting back into the game, the armies weren't that big. Everyone had one vehicle. The Space Marines had a Cybot and I had a Megatrak scrapjet. It has a lot of firepower, but combined with Orkish accuracy, it's not that much in the end. The biggest problem was the Cybot. In my old army, I had one rocket launcher. Problems like Cybots were handled by my warboss and his bodyguard. 4 knobs with choppers and heavy shooters, 2 knobs in mega armor and power claw, and a warboss in mega armor. When I started 40k, this was possible, and most of the time this mob charged into combat, there was not much left of the enemy. This was my defensive unit against nearly everything. A lot of things which were possible aren't anymore. Also, this affects my warboss and his bodyguard. The Tankbustas have to fill in this anti-tank gap. The normal Ork, if you could speak about something like this, loves to fight. May it be an enemy or amongst themselves. What if a group of Orks decided enemies their own size are boring? They take up rocket launchers and anti-tank grenades and fight against tanks. Fighting against space marines, eldar or humans may be satisfying, however for these 6 guys it wasn't enough anymore. Instead of using pistols and choppers, they took up anti-tank weapons and went big game hunting. Their weapons were designed by their clan's mech after exact instructions, so as every mech who's worth his teeth has nothing against a good explosion, he was more than pleased. He worked in his workshop for days until he could give every Ork his own personal rocket launcher. What's never been said is that every weapon is made after the same design. A tube which has a rocket launcher added to it. All other parts were glued, pinned or welded to the weapons just to make them look good. So instead of working, the mech kicked his grots and let them do the work. He kept on tinkering on his own ideas. When the grots completed their work, the mech started adding parts. Useful or not, it didn't matter. He got his teeth and the Tankbustas got their rocket launchers. Only one weapon was made by the mech himself, the already mentioned Panzerklopper. Orks who attack things from afar are weird enough, but there was one Ork in the group who declared he wanted a rocket launcher which hasn't to be fired at the enemy because this is something for cowards. So the customer is always right, a rocket launcher was designed which must not be fired. Instead, the Mac explained to the happy customer he just had to run to the tank and keep on pounding the rocket onto the tank until it explodes. The Ork, which most certainly belongs to the bravest but not to the brightest of his species, left with a happy smile on his face, followed by the eyes of a grinning Mac who imagined the look on the Ork's face when he was exploding with his non-fireable rocket launcher. And here are pictures of the completed models. If you enjoyed the video and want to support my channel, like, share and subscribe or leave a comment below. See you soon in my forge.